that's an amazing drive and a mission at that, to take your personal experience and to want to make sure that nobody else has, either the experience like that, or the experience that you desired in that particular time. You sound like you've always had this like confidence. How did this help you with tackling your new identity, or finding out exactly how you wanted to execute, rooted in her, or what became, later rooted in her?
I would always say that my first was God,
Mhm.
keeping my faith stronger than my will, keeping my faith, always on my top tier no matter what I did, knowing that there is going to be a way out, that there is light at the
Mhm.
end of the tunnel, that everything I am going through is a season that is molding me to that chapter of my life. I used to question myself, and now I say this openly at the stages too that I speak on. Life is not happening to you, life is happening for you. And at the moment, we don't realize when we're going through situations of like, why is this happening? But today I realized that all of that was shaping me to everything that I once built and I didn't relaunch, right? That I once thought I wanted to accomplish, but it wasn't the time and place. Everything is all coming together now. And also your mindset. The mindset is the most powerful tool that if we know how to use it, we can be very successful. And I strongly believe we can live happier because we can be our worst critics on, how we think and how we navigate life. And I really believe that when you have a strong mindset, that even in your toughest moment, aside from faith and praying, that you can say, well, how can I look from this perspective of my life? Or how can I challenge this belief and this mindset? How can I pivot it? Right. And I think those are the two things that were like a strong foundation in me. Every time that I had doubts or that I felt that I wasn't good enough or I wasn't worthy enough, those were two targets that I always lay back to.
Got it. Now, when you say you've experienced these areas in life where you felt like you, maybe at that time weren't as best as you could be, what do you think was fueling that? Was that more as like self doubt, or low confidence, or was that just the weight of everything? Like, just life is full of unexpected situations. Uh, how did you figure where your turning point was, and how to find like-minded individuals to help build this community that you're building?
That is important. I'm glad you mentioned that because I feel it's who you surround yourself that also makes a big difference
Mhm.
on where you're heading and how you think about yourself and your beliefs, right? Because if you're surrounded by people who are constantly being negative or complaining, the chances are that you're not going to be able to evolve as much as you'd like. Because if you're being the positive person, the optimistic, like always thinking the brighter side of things, right? They're going to
Right.
laugh at you or they're going to be like, girl, move on, right? So I feel like your circle is important. But to me, it was really digging deeper to my roots,
Mhm.
knowing that, I kept always thinking there was always that side of me. Well, my family wasn't an entrepreneur. My family didn't accomplish a business. They couldn't do this or that. Like, what makes me capable of? So I
Mhm.
had to do a lot of digging in that and be like, well, I want to lead by example and I want to show my family and those that follow that you can break the mold, that you can break free from those expectations, but also for my kids. They were that stepping stone that I needed to be like, well, I could have a supportive husband today, but he might not be here tomorrow, right? I could have a thriving career, a thriving community, a great support system, but at the end of the day, my kids will always rely on me, right? They'll look up to me in a way. And that does inspire them to know that, well, my mom accomplished this or my mom show up even in her toughest moments. So to me, they were really what helped me break free and say, well, I'm gonna probably not have the strength to do this for me, but I'm gonna do it for them.
Gotcha. Okay. Always in life, when we try something new, we tend to run into new things or things that were unexpected. How do you handle those particular challenges when you're doing something that you may not have done before, and you're setting out to create something that may have not been created exactly like you're trying to do it? How do you know when you've invested enough time in trying to do something a specific way, and that it's time to try something a little bit different?
So I get in the stage where I feel discouraged
Hmm.
and not motivated, right? Like sometimes I feel we have this vision of like, this is what we want to accomplish and we want to run with everything. And we expect also results to happen overnight, because we're desperate or we're in need or it's something we truly want. And we're like, well, I want to see the results right away. But there are times that I've also felt, especially through my journey, that it was just there to mark a season of my life or to be temporary. Like now looking at what I've been able to build with my community, before I didn't have a membership base, right? I was trying to create memberships outside of my community.
Hmm.
I always felt like, okay, but let me create the school community. Let me create this without digging deeper into I already have the foundation of where I can host it in, right? Of what needs my attention. But that started a couple years ago, just creating the vision of wanting to have a membership in place to help me and continue to help me financially to pour into my community. But I didn't know how, right? The other thing was also just understanding that again, where I was going through at the time, I wasn't ready to launch the community that I have today. I was
Right.
still learning. I was still going to speaking engagements. I was still going through my story, molding my story. And now I get to openly talk about my trauma, I'll talk about what helped me get to where I am today and how I've pivoted. I made decisions that I'm like, oh, I should have done this maybe 2 years ago, but 2 years ago I wasn't ready and I don't have the wisdom that I have today to say, well, it happened for this reason. So I've just learned to embrace the moment and really take as much as I can from my current situation. And then just take baby steps through it because it's all for sure marking you to that season of life of where you're going to utilize it for. And that could be business or that could be for your personal as well.
And that's very insightful. So I do also see that you are a co-founder of a podcast, Taboo Talks Latina Edition. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So this is how I feel like life is just works in a mysterious way. I had before that with my Root in Her community a podcast that
Mhm.
I launched that was called Rooted in Her podcast. And I had interview a guest. Usually the girls that will come onto my podcast were going to share their stories. It was usually about healing and trauma and really to motivate other women that were in their shoes, right? And knowing that they're not alone. And through that time, I met who's today a great friend of mine, and she is the founder and the host of the Taboo Talks Latina edition with me. Um,
Okay.
she introduced me to this vision after, and she's like, "Hey, I have this vision of what I want to do, and I think you're going to be perfect to co-host it with me." And without hesitation, I said yes because it's something that, excuse me, I just got out of a cold.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Do what you need to do.
And it was something that she's like, I feel that you're going to be great at. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such an honor. So without hesitation, I said, yes, I'm jumping on. And we started the Taboo Talks. It's going to be now a year and it's growing because it's
Congratulations.
empowering women, but now the Latinas, right? To remind us of our worth and breaking those taboos that we grew up hearing that just because we grew up in a family that maybe didn't have those beliefs or we didn't have the opportunity then to do the things we do today that we can break free and we can rewrite our story, but targeting our Hispanic or Latinas because I feel that as women we don't have the community and we are overseen, we're judged, and in a such male dominated space at times we don't have the space in rooms and we're trying to make that space. And then I also want to be present with my boys, especially at such a young age. I have a 5 and a 7 year old. So I usually drop them off by 8 and I pick them up by 3. So now I know that's my working hours. And then after school, I do follow up and I send messages and texts, but everything else has to wait now until nighttime where I have to recharge and then I can pour into what I couldn't take care of sooner.